I do want to talk to you about how you moved to Burkina Faso in 2021 to, well, it says on your bio, to co-found the Thomas Sankara Center for African Liberation and Unity. And that is, first of all, amazing. Congratulations on that. That's really cool. But can you share your experience about the process of setting that up? What did that entail? And also, I think we've kind of covered your reason for doing this, but why specifically a center for African liberation and unity there? And, like sort of the purpose and mission of it, and also its reception.
Yeah, definitely. So I co-founded the center with a comrade who's from Burkina Faso, born and raised. His name is Wenlasida Sampore. And he's actually somebody that I met while we were in Senegal as we were both students. And the idea was, at the beginning, I don't think we realized how far the Thomas Sankara Center would take us and how much it would grow. It was kind of like we wanted to do something in honor of Thomas Sankara's legacy. And there was the potential, especially at the time I was a student. I applied for a very small grant. It was just supposed to last a couple months over the summer to be a short-term project. And then the funding was cut off. So it wasn't significant. It was designed for like 2, 3 months. And the idea was that, we could use that money to bring in some revolutionary Pan-African or anti-imperialist books, any sort of revolutionary literature books into Burkina Faso because unfortunately, and it's not just the reality in Burkina Faso, but very broadly across the region, you can't find a lot of revolutionary books. I think a lot of it has to do with the way the publishing world is set up. It's a capitalist industry. The big publishing houses are typically London, New York, Paris. These are where the big publishing houses are, and West Africa tends to be kind of cut off from the publishing world in that way. And so we don't really find even like Thomas Sankara's speeches. At one point they were published here, but it's hard to find them now. And then other, very important works by other local revolutionaries from the area, like Amilcar Cabral or Kwame Nkrumah, you don't really find their works here. And so we thought, maybe we can bring them. And the idea at the beginning was to maybe do a donation for the university library. I will say this was before the Alliance of Sahel States was formed. This is before Ibrahim Traoré came to power. And even though there was like an emerging sort of grassroots anti-imperialist movement, the president of Burkina Faso at the time, he's like a typical kind of neo-colonial leader. He wasn't kind of the Blaise Compaoré, so we can talk about him later maybe, but the person who was responsible for Sankara's assassination, who was very like iron fist, repressive, crushing the left. But he was not a revolutionary. He was just very like this lukewarm, we'll work with the IMF, the World Bank, do whatever kind of typical neo-colonial leader that we saw. So at the time, I think the university wasn't super excited about the proposal. I mean, they didn't really get back to us quickly. It was like a little lukewarm. And so it was a comrade, Wen Lasida, who was like, you know what, we can rent a space and we can just kind of see if we can set up something and programs and see how long this goes on for. And we didn't anticipate everything that would happen, but the timing and the conditions were really ripe for this sort of project. And so it was very well received from the get-go. And it was really just a matter of months after we started that project that President Traoré, well, there was first one coup and then there was another. But I think having the first coup, which was not a revolutionary one, fired people up towards thinking that a revolution was like on the verge of coming, and then pushed people also into the space. And then we had a revolutionary coup, or revolution. Some people don't like the word coup, but I think a coup can be potentially revolutionary or reactionary. Thomas Sankara, Gaddafi, they came to power through the military. So just to give that disclaimer. But, the conditions were really ripe. And so people really came in to the center to give you an idea of like what our principles are and our objectives. So we're really focused on revolutionary Pan-African political education. We define Pan-Africanism as the total liberation and unification of Africa under scientific socialism. And we are based off of 4 founding principles that we considered to be really at the heart of Thomas Sankara's ideas. So that's Pan-Africanism, anti-imperialism, socialism, and women's emancipation. He really stressed those 4 principles consistently throughout his life and his time in power. And so we have many different programs. We have a lending library. So we've brought in hundreds of books that talk about these themes, both within the context of Africa, but also within the context of global revolutions, whether they're Vietnam or Cuba or Palestine or whatnot. So we brought in these revolutionary books, and those are available to the public as a free lending library. People who are residents here in the Ouagadougou are allowed to come and check out those books for a month, and they can renew it if there's no other person requesting them. We have a Young Pioneer program that was based off of the Pioneers of the Revolution program that was started in 1985 by Sankara. One of our members is actually, he was part of that program as a child. And so he's helped us to kind of orient it, to ground it in that history and then to also adapt to the present. So we have, both that historical legacy and then like the modern application. We have a work study circle. We actually have two in Burkina Faso. And so we come together every week to study revolutionary books, chapter by chapter, as well as to talk about world geopolitical events and to basically just have geopolitical debates about what's currently happening in the world. And then we have various different events that are often like film screenings or different kinds of community events. We just had one yesterday evening for Sudan, looking at what's happening as the crisis and the war that's going on. So we watched a film together, and then we called in a Sudanese journalist, Mossa Baba, as well as Osama, who is a member of the Sudanese Communist Party, to have an exchange with us. And so these are the kinds of things that we're doing all the time. So yeah, it's been incredible. And then I also say we just opened up a second Thomas Sankara Center in Niamey, Niger. And so now we have two. And so I've been spending a lot of time in Niger this year to help the comrades there get started and get set up. And they have very similar programs. They have their lending library. They participated in the Sudan event yesterday as well. They did one in Niger and we did one in Burkina Faso. And so we're doing very similar work in both countries.